Can first of all just thank the worship team for an amazing session of worship this morning. I thought that was brilliant today. I just honour you guys. I really do honour you guys. That was tremendous. If you've read the church magazine this month, or you've been along to Oasis, you'll have a little bit of a heads up on this message. I want to talk about the person that Carol wrote about in the magazine this month, and that's Rahab. Now, Rahab, I've always said I like talking about characters anyway, particularly where you can apply them to, their journey, what's happened to our own lives today. And Rahab's fascinating. Constantly, she's referred to by what she used to be. It's always Rahab, the prostitute, Rahab, the harlot, all the time. To the point where you think, come on, give the girl a break. Do we have to keep banging on about what she used to be? But of course, there's a reason for it. But the other thing about Rahab, of course, is she's one of only two women to make it into that big chapter of faith in Hebrews 11, that kind of mighty figures of faith. She makes it into there, along with the likes of people like Abraham, Moses, Noah, David, and right in the midst of it, Rahab the harlot. So what I wanted to do, really, is look at her journey from what she used to be into Hebrews 11. So what is it exactly that Rahab does that makes this amazing transformation? Well, her story, of course, is found in Joshua chapter 2. It's all in there. If it's not in there, it's nowhere. Now, the background to Joshua chapter 2, which I'm going to go to in a minute, the background to Joshua chapter 2 is the fact that Israel is on the verge of going into the promised land. They've been here before, 40 years before, under the leadership of Moses. Moses sends 12 spies in, 10 come back with a negative report, 2 come back, Joshua and Caleb, with a positive report. But they're outvoted, and so they don't go in. Now, as a result of that, God has them wandering around in the wilderness for 40 years until the generation that refused to do what God told them to do kind of die out. Now we've got new leadership. The old has gone, the new has come. Moses, the lawgiver, is dead, and now we have new leadership. Joshua, same name in Hebrew, of course, as Yeshua, Jesus. Now, Joshua also sends in spies. He sends in 2 spies to spy out the land, but to pay particular attention to Jericho, which is the fortified city that stands in the way of the people making progress. Now, these 2 spies go in, and they are received into the house of Rahab, the harlot. Now, I'm going to look at the whole of this scripture. I don't normally sort of deal with great chunks of scripture. That's not really my style. But I want to look at the whole thing, because what actually happens here is significant. It's the thing that takes Rahab from one thing to Hebrews 11. See, the king of Jericho gets wind of what's happening. He sends 2 messengers down to ask Rahab about these 2 spies. And she tells them, they've gone. I think if you go that way, you might catch up with them. But in reality, she's already made a decision. She's already hidden them on her roof. And before they turn in for the night, she cuts a deal with these 2 spies. And it's the terms of this deal, this agreement, this covenant, if you like, that is what takes her from her old life, not just into being saved, but actually into Hebrews 11. So let's look at the scripture here. We've got the first part of it up there. As I said, this is the longest chunk of scripture I'll probably ever get around to reading. It says this, Joshua chapter 2, starting at verse 8. Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up on the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melted in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land. So she let them down by the rope through the window, for the house she lived in was part of the city wall. She said to them, go to the hills so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there 3 days until they return, and then go on your way. Now the men had said to her, the oath you made us swear will not be binding on us unless when we enter the land you have tied this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family into your house. If any of them go outside your house into the street, their blood will be on their own heads. We will not be responsible. As for those who are in the house with you, their blood will be on our head if a hand is laid on them. If you tell what we are doing, we will be released from the oath you made us swear. Agreed, she replied, let it be as you say. So she sent them away, and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window. Now the story goes on, of course. The spies hide up for 3 days. They go back to Joshua. They report back. And the next 3 chapters of Joshua deal with the setting up, the preparation for crossing the Jordan and going into the promised land. And it's Joshua chapter 6 that we find the famous Battle of Jericho, the one that we all sing about. And God's battle plan is quite strange, isn't it? He sends the armed men and the priests to walk around the city on day 1, more or less in silence, and then to come back to camp, and then to do the same thing for the next 5 days. For 6 days, they walk around the city once and go back to camp. On day 7, they walk around the city 7 times, and on the 7th occasion, they blow the trumpets, let out a shout of victory, and wallop, down come the walls. Apart from the sound of Rahab's house, which is left standing up there, presumably like some solitary tooth. Now, when you look at that, it's hard to... Something drops, doesn't it? Joshua may have thought that he was sending 2 men in to bring him back military information about Jericho and its weaknesses. But in reality, these 2 guys brought back nothing of any significance in military terms to Joshua. There's no point in them coming back and saying, hey guys, we found a weak spot on the east side, let's attack there, because God already had it in mind as to what his battle plan was. So it's hard to escape the conclusion that although Joshua may have thought he was sending people in to get some information, the reality was that God had arranged these 2 men to go into the city for one and one purpose only, and that's to connect with Rahab, the harlot. Now hold that thought for a moment. Hold that. God looks down at Jericho and says, wicked city, guys, it's got to go. We can't have that and my people coexisting in the same space. Sorry, guys, it's got to go. The same as a big sin in your life, that God may say to you, look, you've got to get rid of that. You will not make any progress into the land while that's in place. Get rid of it. Be ruthless. But hold on a sec. I see in that city, one person who has a heart to respond to me. Now, he doesn't reach into the city and beam her out. He sends in 2 agents to get into her hands, to connect with her, to give her an opportunity to make a choice, a free choice. Which kingdom are you going to support? Now, you see the significance, Christine. You see the significance, don't you? You get it. God puts the destruction of Jericho on hold to allow two people to connect with one person who has a heart to respond to the gospel and to allow her to make a choice. We've spoken a lot this morning, and we do it regularly, that the gospel is personal, that Jesus died for me. I've even stood here and said that even if you'd been the only person who needed to be saved, Jesus would have still gone to the cross for you. I've said that myself. I know it. I get it. I understand it. The problem is, of course, that I get it up here in my head, and I don't always get it down here in my heart because it's too big. It's too big. I can get the idea that Jesus died for human beings, but the idea that Jesus died for me is just too massive. That God became Jesus on earth in flesh to suffer and die on the cross of me. I'm sorry, it's just too big. I don't get it. I get little bits of it, but I'm too close to me and my weaknesses and awful things that perhaps my head does and so on to believe that I'm worth that. Do you know what I mean? I get it, but I can't fully grasp it. I think if I did, everything would be different. I think if I grasp it, if that would drop down to my heart in its entirety, I would never, ever be able to wander around saying, I'm not worthy, no one loves me. It would change everything that I did. But I'm too close to me to fully grasp it. But however, that is exactly what happened to Rahab. Exactly what happened to Rahab. So if I can't get the personal nature of the gospel for me, then I can stand back and see, well, hang on, Rahab is a living example of what God was prepared to do for me. Put the destruction of this wicked place on hold to give me an opportunity to respond to him. And he's done the same for each one of you too. We are all Rahabs. We are all Rahabs. I am Allan the harlot, the sinner. We are Rahabs. But there's a little twist to it, isn't there? That if we are all Rahabs, and this is what God did for us, then we don't just scrape into salvation by the skin of our teeth, hanging onto it by our fingernails. Because Rahab didn't just get saved out of Jericho. She actually got transported into Hebrews 11. And if we do what Rahab did, because Rahab didn't build an ark in the desert like Noah, mighty man of faith, or lead the Israelites out of Egypt like Moses, or become the greatest king that Israel had, a man after God's heart like David. They're all in there. No, what she did was contained in those 13 verses that we just read. And if we do what she did, if we are able to do that, then we don't just sort of scrape out of the destiny that was heading our way, but we actually make it into Hebrews 11. So I want to take us on a journey into Hebrews 11 for each and every one of us. What did she do to get herself along that sort of exalted company? Well, first question, what did God see when he looked at Rahab? What did he see when he looked at her? What did he see when he looked at you? Well, when he looked at Rahab, he didn't see her good deeds, did he? He didn't see her noble character. I don't think he saw her potential, as some people say. God looks at us and sees the potential for the person we could be. I don't think he even sees that. All he did was God saw Rahab's heart. Because it's what God always sees, isn't it? God looks not at the outside, but at what's within. He saw her heart. And presumably, when I responded in 1988, God sent people into my world to challenge me, to give me that opportunity on that Good Friday 1988. He saw my heart too. So what did he see in Rahab's heart that made him think, hang on, let's put the destruction of Jericho on hold for this? Well, the first thing was that Rahab knew who she was. Rahab knew who she was. Rahab the harlot. You don't have to tell a hooker she's a hooker. She knows. Same as you don't have to tell an addict they're an addict. You know. Which is probably why it's easier to minister the gospel in prison than it is in a golf club. Because people in prison don't tend to sit with their feet up thinking, I'm living the dream. They know who they are. They know they've got a problem. Rahab the harlot. Problem is, of course, there's a shed load of people out there who don't know that. They think they're good people. They think they're noble people. They think they've got good characters. If heaven exists, it was made for people like them. And they have to know something different. They have to recognize something different. But here's the twist. I think there's a lot of people sitting in churches in this country at this very moment who also think they're good people. They think they were always good people. And coming to church has made them even better. It's just added another line to their CV that says, I'm a good person. They can write about me in the paper now and say things like, he's a pillar of the community, a regular churchgoer. And the problem is, while we think we are good people, we will not fully understand what God has done for us. Because I think a lot of people sit in churches, and I've done this, and I've kind of forgotten where I come from. Do you know what I mean? I kind of think, no, I'm a pretty good person. I now go to church. I now do a prison stuff and things like that. I'm a good person. But what I've forgotten is where I came from. What position I was in before God stepped into my world and gave me the opportunity to respond. What he saved me from. If I don't understand what God has saved me from, I'll never understand fully the grace of God. If I don't understand how bad I was, I will never understand how good he is. We need to remember where we've come from. Rahab is never allowed to forget where she came from. She is Rahab the harlot. Always. Never forget where you've come from. No matter how long you've been a Christian, no matter how much you think God has saved you and you do all the right stuff, never forget that at some point in everybody's journey here who's a believer, God put the destruction of the planet on hold to allow people to come into your world to give you an opportunity to respond. So the fate that was going to come upon you, otherwise, you escape. Never forget where you've come from. Rahab knew who she was. But there's something else. Rahab knew Joshua was coming. She knew that out there, something was approaching her. Joshua was coming. And we know it too, don't we? Joshua's coming. Yeshua is coming. But if we've made that choice, that doesn't frighten us. But of course, there's a load of people out there who don't know that. They don't know that Joshua is coming. But it's my belief that there's a shed load of people out there in the world, in the Jericho in which we live, that know that something's coming. They know that something is heading their way. They just don't know it's Joshua. Because I believe that huge numbers of the human race know that the planet cannot go on the way it is for that much longer. Something is coming. Now, I'm very aware, by the way, that I could take this sort of section and turn it into a kind of doom and gloom, the state of society. I could turn it into that, and it would change the kind of tone of this. I don't really want to do that. But, because I'm aware, for example, that young people would get very kind of fed up rapidly of people talking about in my day. You know what I mean? Oh, here goes Grandad again, banging on about the good old days. The only thing is, and I thought exactly that, as you grow older, you realize something comes upon you, that it's actually true. It's actually true. Things are spiraling out of control. We get kind of sidetracked by the glitz of technology. How can society be kind of spiraling out of control when I can sit on top of a mountain and watch a movie on my smartphone? Look at that. I can contact my 1,000 virtual friends on Facebook from any point on the planet. And no doubt technology does some amazing things. No arguments with that. But once you cut across that and you look at what's real underneath, which I think is people, society, children, community, marriage, relationships, things are in free fall. Things are in free fall. And we recognize the truth of what the Christian poet Steve Turner wrote in a two-liner when he said, "These are the good old days. Just wait and see." See, what's being eroded in our society, and we saw it very clearly this week in Manchester, what's been eroded in our society is something called peace. That's what we've lost. Technology can't supply us with that. We have lost peace. It was the last thing that Jesus said before he went up to heaven. May God give you peace. Because Jesus knew how much we need it, how much it was going to evaporate from our world, and how peace is only found in that relationship with God. May God give you peace, because nothing else can. And you'll know what I mean when there are so many people who say, I can't watch the news anymore, because every time I turn it on, I'm thinking, oh no, not again. What is happening this time? Oh, can I please have a break from this? Can I please have something where I can have that peace back? And what happens? And I think the world knows that. I think the world knows that this can't go on like this. But what do? Well, they do exactly what the people in Jericho did. They retreat behind their walls. The walls will protect us. The walls of science, they'll protect us. Global warming, science will sort it out. Famine, science will sort it out. Economic collapse, economists will sort it out. Terrorism, drug problems, everything that's got... Somebody will sort it out. We retreat behind the walls. But of course, the walls of Jericho never stood. They didn't protect them. Only that section of wall containing Rahab was safe. But it's what people do. They retreat behind their walls. Rahab didn't. Rahab read the signs of the times, saw it coming, and thought she has to take a step towards it and embrace it and do something. So Rahab knew who she was. She knew that Joshua was coming. But she also knew that the one true God is the God of Israel. She knew that what was coming, Joshua was coming, but at the center of it all was the God of Israel. Nothing else. Not a social movement, not any other God, not Buddha, not Allah, the God of Israel. And in church terms, not even the God of the charismatic church. Not even a soft, pink, fluffy God who thinks that he just wants us to live all happy and cozy and cuddly and have fun. Not even that. I'm sorry, not even the Pentecostal God. The God of Israel. The God of Israel is on his way, and he needs to be respected. We need to have a right attitude to the God of Israel. I'm sorry, a lot of the church doesn't. It doesn't have the right attitude. It thinks that God is a nice fellow up there in the clouds. You can go, hiya, buddy, how are you getting on? Who can be manipulated. Give 10% of your money and God will bless you. It's all right. We can do deals with God. God will kind of come around because he loves us so much. He'll tolerate any kind of behavior. But Rahab recognized something else. That this is the God of Israel. And that's the one that she needs to have the right attitude to. She knew who she was. She knew he had a problem. She knew that something was coming she needed to respond to. And she knew what it was as well, the God of Israel. She says to the spies, your God, for the Lord your God is God in heaven, above on the earth below. She knew, she recognized who it was. Now, is that enough to take her into Hebrews 11? What do you think? If you do all that, if you know who you are, you know you've got a problem. Which in 12-step terms is step 1, by the way. You know that Joshua is coming. That's actually kind of step 2. And that it's the God of Israel. Is that enough? Well, not quite. Not quite. There's something else. There are 2 scriptures that apply here. Here's the first one. It's actually Hebrews 11, verse 31. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. That sounds fair enough. She recognized what was coming. The two spies appeared, gave her an opportunity to say, well, okay, I welcome you. Is that enough to get her in? Well, it seems that way until you look at James chapter 2, which says this. In the same way, was not even Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in a different direction? See, it wasn't enough just to recognize the situation. What she did was then to do something. She wasn't just sitting back accepting what had happened, recognizing she did something. In fact, if you want a bit of a giggle here, when you go home, what she does, you see, and what she's commended for, is she actually lies to the king's messengers. She sends them off in a different direction. She is commended for lying to them. Now, if you want to laugh, just go onto the internet and tap in, was Rahab right to lie? And you'll see Christians going through somersaults, trying to get that into perspective. Was it right to lie? No, it can't possibly be. No, I wouldn't lie. And they scratch their heads trying to bring this into line. Well, her culture didn't encourage honesty, so perhaps we explain it that way. Perhaps it was only a little white lie. Or perhaps the ends justify the means, or something like that. Was she right to lie? Of course she was. Don't be daft about it. What was she supposed to do? Turn to the messengers and say, they're on the roof. Excuse me? All right, 10 out for honesty, and minus 1,000,000 for common sense. Because now the spies have been arrested and probably executed before they've had a chance to tell you about the crimson cord and give you all the opportunity to respond. Now you die, your family die. Nice one. All the effort that God went to send people into a world has now been destroyed because she shot them. Was she right to lie? Yeah. I tell you what, if I'm sitting here with Jamie having a chat and we hear some bloke coming into the foyer saying, I've got this baseball bat, I've been told to beat your pastor to a pulp with it. And he comes in and says, where's the pastor of your church? I tell you what I'm going to say, he's not here. He's gone on holiday somewhere. Why don't you go out and calm down? Then I'm going to phone the police. What I'm not going to say is, oh yeah, he heard you coming, he's in the cupboard. Sorry, Jamie, I could not tell a lie. See, what this is about is not about the situation where it's right to bend the truth, tell, and getting all your head, our spiritual knickers in a twist about that one. It's about the problems caused by legalism. Of course, you don't have to go your head down that way. See, Rahab recognized she had to do something. And part of the deal was to understand something about faith. About faith. See, the Hebrew word for faith is emunah, from which we get the word amen. The Hebrew word for faithfulness is emunah. It's the same word. The Hebrew makes no distinction whatsoever between faith and faithfulness. Neither effectively does the Greek. It's only in English we make that distinction, faith and faithfulness being separate words. And that can cause a problem. It causes a problem. Sometimes you'll talk to a guy in prison and he'll say, oh yeah, I was brought up in church, but I went my own way really. But I have a faith in God. And when you probe it a bit, you discover that what they actually mean is he has a belief in God. He believes in God. He believes some of the stuff in the Bible. Well, belief won't save you. The devil believes in God. It's not going to save him. Belief does not do anything. Faith does. But faith and faithfulness are the same thing. Faith is something that we think we can have while we're sitting there, but faithfulness is something that you take with you on a day-to-day journey. In other words, if a faith is genuine, a person will be faithful. It's an ongoing thing. Rahab had to recognize That it's not just a matter of believing, yeah, I see God's coming, yeah, it's the God of Israel, yeah, I need to respect him. Now I've got to do something, because faith is something that you do, you put into action. It's why the next thing that James says in that, of course, is faith without works is dead. It's got to be demonstrated. If you can't see it, it ain't there. So Rahab had to show that she recognized she had a responsibility. Not just to sit there and believe it all, but to actually believe it and show that she believed it by doing something. And the first thing she needed to do was to hang out the crimson cord. Hang out the crimson cord. Now, we know what the crimson cord represents, don't we? I'm sure. You know, the blood of Jesus. Or more significantly, I suppose, bearing in mind Israel's recent history, the blood that was put on over the doorpost at Passover, at the first Passover, when the angel of death passes over, the blood on the lamb, that covering. We recognize that. In fact, when Rahab did that deal with the spies, and she said, look, I've treated you kindly, treat me kindly when you come into the land, the word she used was hesed, which means covering. In other words, look, I protected you, I lied for you, I put my life on the line, I covered you. When you come in, cover me. And this is the covering, the crimson cord. Now, why is it an example of the importance of faith? Well, because when does the cord go out? When did the cord go out? Joshua 2, verses 21, I think. She sent them away and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window. The scarlet cord went out the minute that the deal was cut, and it stayed there until the walls fell. It didn't go out on Sundays and then taken in again. It didn't go out when you have a problem. It didn't go out just when we do communion. It didn't go out when you see Joshua arriving. Oh, here things seem to be happening. Let me put the scarlet cord out. It went out from the moment she cut the deal, and it stayed there until the walls fell. It's there all the time. And if it's not there, there's a problem. See, Rahab recognized the importance of faith. Keeping the cord out there, doing something. Now, is that enough to get her into Hebrews 11? If we've done all that, do we now move into Hebrews 11? Possibly. But they then gave her another job. They then gave her something else. Spread the word. Okay, Rahab, you're all right. You've recognized that. You've responded to it. You put the scarlet cord out. But now you've also said that you care about your family. You care about your mother and your father. You care about your brothers and sisters. Well, now prove it. Demonstrate it. Because if you care about these people, you will bring them into the room that is covered by the scarlet cord. You will bring them in. If you care. And it's the same with us, isn't it? If we say we care about the lost, I have a heart for the lost, then one thing's pretty obvious. You will bring them in to the place to be covered by the scarlet cord. You will bring them in. You won't just sit there and hope they're going to wander in on their own. The spies don't say, it's okay, don't bother, Rahab. You just sit and look out the window, admire your scarlet cord. We'll get them in. No, you bring them in. You said you cared, now show it. This, by the way, the importance of fellowship is actually in the wrong order, so I'm going to put that on separately. This one is the importance of fellowship, but I'll come to that one. Just got the overhead in the wrong direction there. See, spreading the word is important. Spreading the word. Now, here's the question. What brought them in to the room? Why did they respond to Rahab's words when she said, come in? Well, it could have been, I think, because of her intensity, her passion. They looked at her and they thought, well, she believes it, doesn't she? There's something going on here. She's not just being airy-fairy about it. She believes this stuff. We will respond because of her. We see a change in her character. I rather suspect that she didn't go about in the week remaining after the spies went to carry on her prostitute duties. So I think they probably saw changed lives. Isn't that what draws people into the room? A changed life, your character, your intensity, the fact you believe this stuff. That brought them in. And I think by the time you've got to that point, the chances are you've made it to Hebrews 11. I think you've done enough now. You're in Hebrews 11. If you've done all that, along with Abraham and Moses and all the rest of them, by faith, and you can now put your name in there if you've done that. But there are two bits of advice that these guys give just before they go. One is they say, don't go out. Don't go out. Which actually, that's why it's in the wrong order, tells us something about the importance of fellowship. When you're in the room, stop in the room. Don't go out. Don't leave it. Do not give up worshiping together, fellowshipping together, as some people are prone to do, especially as you see the day approaching. Proverbs 18 verse 1 says this: he who separates himself seeks his own desire. He quarrels against all sound wisdom. Anybody who wanders out of fellowship is quarreling against sound wisdom. Jesus says, stop together. When you wander off, you're being an idiot. Fellowship, we've spoken about it on a number of occasions, is important. Don't go out of the room. And that's not talking just about one particular church, is it? It's in fellowship. I wonder if anybody of Rahab's relatives went. I wonder if they walked out of the room at some point. I wonder if they stood there in that room, looked out the window and said, well, okay, when's this Joshua guy coming then? And Rahab said, well, I don't know. He didn't give me a timetable. Well, how long have we got to wait here then? Nothing seems to be happening. I think I'll just go out. Perhaps when the Israelites arrived and they thought, well, here it goes then, guys, here they come, and they walk around the city and then they go again, perhaps he thought, well, is this it? Is that what they're going to do? Just walk around the city? Well, that's not much. I'm not getting frightened of that. That's a bit dull. That's not what I thought it would be. And there's a number of people who walk away from church, from fellowship, because it's not what they thought it would be. Come on, when I became a Christian, people were falling down. God was raising the dead, healing the sick. I want it to be like that every week. If it's not like that, I'm off. It's not what I thought it would be. So some people leave. Other churches engineer it all to make it happen, jump up and down, to make things seem exciting, to keep people there. But what these spies said is, once you're in the room, once you're under the covering of that scarlet cord, stick in. Stay there. Don't go out. Spreading the word, of course, really should go with that one, shouldn't it? The importance of evangelism and witness. So we're upside down there. But there was one final piece of advice that we can finish off. They said, don't betray us. Don't betray us. Now, what's it mean about betraying? Because Jesus says it in Matthew 24, verse 10. Many will fall away and betray one another. How can you betray people? How could I betray you? Well, if I was the pastor of this church, I could betray you very simply. I could preach you a different gospel. I'll preach you a gospel that says, give me 10% of your money and God will bless you abundantly with prosperity. I could betray you that way. I could betray you by telling you to bring in a load of non-believers, and then we'll dim the lights and we'll get somebody on the keyboard to create an atmosphere, and I can say everybody's heads bowed, eyes closed. Now put your hand up if you want to give your life to Jesus. And I could count you. Yep, 20. Put your hands down, God's seen you. 20 people responded. I'll bang it on Facebook so that people put little comments about what a mighty man of God I am. And I've sent 20 people out there thinking, well, I've become a Christian now. I betrayed you because I have sold you Christianity without cost, without anything behind it. Faith without faithfulness. Emunah without emunah. It's not possible. But I betrayed you. So, the importance of sound doctrine. Those are the two pieces of advice that they gave. simply about how you conduct your Christianity. Stay in fellowship. Stay rooted in the Word. Importance of sound doctrine. And you'll be okay. And that's it. That's it. Finished. Done.